Alrighty everybody, hello and welcome back to SOMA. Last video we started our exploration of Theta. We're trying to get the Dunbat up and working, but we're also taking our time to get our hands on some very juicy story as we're now able to explore the crew's quarters. So we were actually able to learn a little bit more about Catherine, and obviously at the moment she's really concerned that there's nobody around alive that we've been able to find so far, because Theta makes the most sense as to where people would gather in the case of an emergency. So after Catherine's room, we're going to go ahead and open up Mark's room, which I think probably has the most kind of plot dump of this area, so might be in here for a little while. So if we recall, earlier on when we were in Lambda, Catherine had interviewed Mark about the thoughts and feelings he had about the ARC project, and he seemed really obsessed with this continuity theory, basically. And he was really excited about the ARC project and he thought it was a great idea. And obviously, we've also learned that he was the first one to commit suicide, and he was trying to convince other people to do the same. So we can learn a little bit more about that as we explore his room here. We can read this letter on the desk. And this is his suicide note, essentially. Dear friends, when you read this, I will have entered the Ark. As I've explained, this is accomplished by ceasing to live as your scan is being completed. To not frighten Catherine, I will do this in secret by folding cyanide salts into chewing gum and placing it in my mouth before seeing her. When I hear her announce completion, I will bite down, quickly causing my own demise. When you discover the truth behind my death, no, there's no tragedy to mourn, for I am victorious. I advise you all to do the same and join me inside the Ark. So this is kind of when the problems started, because obviously when he started convincing people to kill himself, or when he did kill himself, it really made people think, is this Ark thing really that good of an idea?
Did you know that the human body consists of up to 75 trillion individual cells? They typically don't stay with us till we die. Some live a few days, while others live a few years. We're not affected by their short lifespans, as they're replaced by new cells which help sustain our bodies. I don't think anyone would argue that we ever lose our persona due to this process. Yet we are clearly in a constant state of transformation. Then how do we remain the same? A continuous flow of thought and perception keeps an unbroken chain of continuity that we know as our self. Our conscious mind is not the pattern of our brain, but a continuous emergent entity based on that pattern. When Dr. Chun populates the Ark, she is capturing a moment of our existence and placing it inside the digital world. Soon you and your digital you will grow apart due to diverging experiences, but for a tiny window, you are the very same. With unbroken continuity, it will live on. A fulfilling life, no doubt, no less real than the one from which it was plucked. Now remember, you are not your body. You are the emergent entity. That entity just happens to occupy two places at once for a while. If you took away your body, you would simply be the only one you can be. The you inside the Ark. Let your body die and continue on in the digital paradise among the stars.
So yeah, that I would say is probably the best explanation if you're confused as to what his line of thinking is. I think that clears it up pretty darn well. And we know that Robin shared his thinking because we had a chance to speak to her consciousness that was inside the Mockingbird robot just outside of Theta. And I guess when you look at the way that he was thinking, it kind of makes sense. You don't want a copy of yourself running around. You want you to remain your true self, and you want there to only be one of you. So it makes sense, but killing yourself seems a little extreme. So in this drawer here we have a classified document from Carthage Industries. Mr. Sarong, the company is very pleased to hear about your success in making the WoW a station-wide presence. We trust you appreciate what a unique opportunity this is, and that you will do everything in your power to fully explore and understand this mystery. To do so, you need to ensure that Dr. Johan Ross is able to steer and study the WoW from Alpha without outside interference. In case of an emergency, you may direct Julia Dahl at Omicron to forcefully eliminate any opposition, but please make an effort to avoid extreme actions. The WoW is an important, costly affair, and we hope to follow a steady development without setbacks. So that's very interesting. At one point, it seems like the WoW was maybe contained, and maybe it was more innocent, and it didn't have as much of a presence as it did, as now. Obviously, it's completely taken over all of Pathos 2. And from my understanding, I think that Mark, Julia, the lady mentioned in this letter, and I think one or two other employees kind of have ulterior motives that weren't known to the rest of the people living on Pathos 2. But my question is, if you had an ulterior motive and you were told to do something else, why would you continue doing it after you know that the Earth has been completely wiped out? I mean, you don't really report to anyone anymore. But hold on. Can we see when that was dated? 2102. I feel like that was maybe a year before the Earth was wiped out. There's so many dates to keep track of in this game. What I really need is like a timeline that I can refer to when I record these. But anyways, Mark was up to some shit, basically. Long story short. He has a clipboard here, which I don't think has any relevance, really. Just another thing for us to look at. We can look at all the books in his room, but again, these things really have no significance. What you will want to look at, though, and what is really kind of interesting, is this diagram here. So this is obviously a chart of all the sites down here on Pathos 2, and it shows the spread of the WoW, essentially. And all of these pictures that he has are just him making observations about the WoW. Some of these I can read, and some of them I can't. But some of these photos you might also notice as places that we've been to throughout Pathos 2 already. So I'll just quickly go through these. This is something in the chem lab, which we can actually come across in our travels. Those appear to be the pipes infused with the structure gel, which is controlled by the WoW. So yeah, a lot of, obviously, musings on his part, a lot of calculations, a lot of questions, kind of showing the spread of WoW, and just a lot of, high-level stuff that I don't understand. But essentially, I think he knows a lot more about the WoW than he was letting on, or maybe that he told people about. He had some sort of ulterior motive in any case. So those are the only real things worth looking at, but really interesting stuff nonetheless. I really liked that they let us go into some of these rooms at the very least, so that we could get an idea about what people were doing here when they were alive. And Robin's room. Alright, well let's have a look in here, because we actually got a chance to talk to her. Turn on the light, and yeah, you can see here, it looks like she killed herself right in her bed. And it looks like she did it with a straight razor. So I would assume she probably slit her throat or something. And she bled out and she committed suicide after her scan was done. And this is her suicide note here on the table. We're all dying anyways. I'm all in. I put my faith in Sarong and the continuity. And I don't know if Robin drew these herself, or whether she had a family before she came down to Pathos 2, but she's got an awful lot of drawings here. This one here you can see is actually a picture of one of the simulations in the Ark, and I think we've seen this picture somewhere else. So this is like an environmental simulation that Catherine had done. This is basically one of the places that you would visit in the Ark, or that you might see in the Ark. And it looks like Robin's been kind of fantasizing about living on the Ark rather than living on Earth, you know, on Pathos 2. It looks like she's been kind of drawing her ideal kind of world, you know. So, I don't really know what to make of this. It's very sad, though, you know. I mean, she seems very kind of lonely and desperate, and obviously I think for Mark, herself, and all the other people down here, the Ark was a much better option. You know, obviously they wanted to go through with it. I don't think there's really much else in Robin's room. She's got some pictures here, but again, the pictures aren't really important to look at. They don't really tell us a whole lot. Basically, just confirming that yes, she did kill herself. And now we know how, we know the method, and just kind of what her thoughts were, kind of what was running through her head of wanting to continue on in the Ark. It looks like we have like an audio recording or something here, maybe? Oh, it's a picture of a seagull. Oh, okay, so it was just a picture. For some reason, I thought it was like you could listen to the headphones or something, but anyways, yep, that's all there is just some pictures in her room. I think her lockers are actually locked. That one is. There we go. So there you go. I hope you guys have had your fill of some story as to what happened to some of these people. Because this room here we can go into, but it doesn't have anything. All it has is just a healing area there if you need to heal. And that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything in these drawers, from what I remember. Oh, sure isn't. Alright. So we won't really have to come back here for a little while, but if you didn't take the time to explore right now, you can come back later. So, whatever order you want to do all this stuff in, it's up to you. The monster running around is trying to fuck with us, I think, by scaring us. But don't worry, you're safe. You're not going to get attacked in here. And so if we continue up to this door here, this is kind of our next objective. All that other stuff was just optional filler. So on the right, we have a lab area, and on the left, we actually have where Catherine was doing all of the scans.
This is where I did my scan. And all the others, I suppose.
You don't remember?
My scan was the first. Had to test the scanner before I could start making promises.
So yeah, this is a very similar seat to what Simon had woken up in when we first got down here. And it was explained that by sitting in the pilot seat, you could do the brain scan. And I think there's actually a diagram here of how it all works, which is pretty cool. This computer right now is not working because we need to get power, basically. So we're not going to be able to actually move on with the story until we backtrack, but there's a couple of other things that we can listen to in here, including this data buffer.
Strasky, come in. I need help in the lab, the scan room.
What happened?
Conrad killed himself after the scan.
Jesus, how?
Laser tool? What should I do?
I'm gonna need to tell Strohmeyer.
No, please! I'm so close. Strohmeyer's gonna shut down the ARC project. It's not my fault people keep killing themselves.
Catherine, what are you gonna do? It's not like you can sneak a 300-pound body out of the lab.
I know.
Catherine, are you okay?
Not even close.
Aw, poor Catherine. Again, I mean, she saw Mark kill himself because he bit down on his cyanide chewing gum, so he probably died like right in front of her. And then this guy killed himself with a maser tool, and we had seen him with diagrams of how to disengage the safety on that maser tool so he could use it to essentially fry himself right in front of her. So that's gotta be absolutely traumatizing and just terrifying, and it also puts her project in jeopardy that she's worked so hard on, you know? So there's a terminal back here that we can examine.
Ah, I see.
What?
Check the terminal. I just want to make sure.
And if we look at this, you can see that our name is on here, as well as Dr. Munchie and Dr. Berg. And these are something called legacy scans. And we can look at the information for all of these, so we can see that Dr. Berg's scan was done by David Munchie. We have a date of birth and a date of death. So obviously confirming that these people are dead, but we can access their information.
How did this... What is this?
So it looks like Dr. Munchie and Dr. Berg's brain scans are also stored here along with Simon's, which would mean it was probably just some freak coincidence that we woke up as Simon. We very well could have woken up as Dr. Munchie or Dr. Berg.
Kath, what is this? Why do you have a file of me?
You are one of Dr. Munchie's templates. A legacy scan.
So that's kind of a scary thought, and you can actually see here that Simon died on June 1st of 2015, which would have only made him 27 years old, so very young and very sad. And he's the only one with audio recordings, so let's go ahead and listen to those, shall we? This post-scan one, I do believe, is either the day... I think it's actually the day before the story started, on May the 2nd.
Okay, that's it.
Wow, that was fun.
That's a relief. Still figuring this out, so...
It was freaky. So many lights. What do we do now?
Paul and I are going to run tests for a week or so, then we'll work out a roadmap to your recovery.
Well, I feel excited. Can't wait to get back to the living.
We've worked everything out. Everything is legal. Vouched for by Dr. Peak and Professor Way.
Oh, that's great news.
No big change in medication. You'll be taking an aspirin every morning, but that's about it. Paul worked out a diet with some variations you should try out. You can continue doing physical therapy. Also, there's some extra cardio training every other day.
Okay, getting complicated.
Don't worry, it's really not. We're going to keep an eye on you every week, so we'll be able to adjust the plan if needed.
And then this last recording is actually the day of our death. Simon's death. Yeah, that is, not our death. You know what I mean.
The model was sound. It should have worked.
It's not your fault, David.
I really wish things had turned out differently.
Yeah, me too.
I was supposed to save you.
Hey, you got my brain on file. Maybe you can put it to some use.
Yeah, who knows? You'd be okay with that? Using it for my research?
Sure. It's like a part of me lives on or something. Like a donated organ. You know what sucks about dying?
What?
The crash. Everything up till now. The brain damage. You guys, everything. It's made my life so much more real. I started thinking about all the things I was going to do. I'd never been more excited to be alive. All that hope. Wasted.
So that gives us insight into the mind of the actual Simon, probably moments before his death. I think that blinking was maybe him in like the hospital or something like that, or so I'd like to think. So obviously whatever brain damage Simon had suffered from his car accident was really just completely irreversible, and there was nothing that, you know, Dr. Munchie could have done. But yeah, that essentially explains how we came to be and how our scan made it into our little robot body here, and we also just have a confirmed data death for Simon as well. And you have the option to erase the data. I think you can also erase the data of the others if you want to, and it's completely up to you. It really makes no difference whether you erase it or not. Erasing it just essentially means that it can no longer be used, but considering that there's nobody left on Earth and there doesn't appear to be anybody left underwater either, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter. It's not like anyone else is going to come along and use our brain, or so I would hope. So I just erase it because, I mean, why not? It seems like the right thing to do in the off chance that maybe Simon's brain would be imported into another robot. It just seems like, you know, the best thing to have one less Simon running around. Going on with Mark's theory of continuity, it just seems better to have less copies running around, you know? Well, that's that.
He's dead, Kat. The real Simon is dead. And I'm a replica of that scan Munchie did, thinking he's Simon.
What did you expect?
I don't know. I don't know what I was hoping for. An explanation? Maybe an apology?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not from you. Well, thanks, I guess. I deleted the file, so hopefully I'll be the last Simon to suffer through this place.
Ready to move on?
Yeah. Let's go.
So I guess that's a bit of closure for Simon as well, because he's been having this existential crisis about himself not actually being a real person and more or less being a brain scan, similar to how Catherine has been scanning people into the Ark. So we still have one more room to explore. We haven't gone into the lab yet, so we will continue on in Theta in the next video. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope that I will see you next time.